Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name's Rich Natoli, your regular host, and we're doing this show because it's too cold to go fishing for as long as we want to every day. So we may as well kick back on a Monday and talk about it. And tonight I'm going to be joined by Chris Matuson, and we're going to talk freshwater and trout fishing in the colder months. And this is a really good topic because, look, if you're anything like me and you're almost totally dedicated to saltwater, it's really tough to get on the water right now. And what makes it tough is what you really have going, not even for very long, because especially in New Jersey, you're going to lose the striped bass in the back bays. You're going to be on a boat. You're going to be on a boat all day, and it's a tough time of year to do that. Trips are getting blown out left and right. They're getting canceled because it's too cold, so people aren't filling the boats. So one thing that you can do, and one thing that I look forward to doing, is when things get oppressive around the holidays and you need to get out, you need to just get some rest, some relaxation, just some time on the water. Why not winter trout? Because this is the time to catch them. And Chris is going to go through with us exactly how to do that. So as we get ready for Chris to come on in just a moment, I'm going to talk about the sponsors. We have Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton, New Jersey. Paul and his team, man, if you're looking for anything kayak related, check out Great Bay Outfitters first. One of the largest dealers in the entire region. And you're going to look at Native, Old Town. Those are the new kayaks. Crescent, the new Crescent skiff. He's got it. He just got in. I think I saw today he got 130 boats in today. So if you want stock over the holidays, get it ready, get it tricked out and prepared for the spring. You definitely want to check out Great Bay Outfitters. Quad State Tune. Kevin Driscoll is your guy if you have a Toyota truck. Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, the Lexus 460, 470. These tunes for the engines, they're great engines in these trucks. They're great trucks, but they can have some issues where you can lose a little bit of torque and everything. But if you get these tunes, you get more torque, you're getting more horsepower, better fuel efficiency, smoother shifting. If you're hauling a boat, if you're hauling a trailer for work, this is something that you should probably look into. Give Kevin a call, 484-633-5975. And then real estate, you have me with Weichert Realtors Cornerstone out of the office in Bluebell, also out of the office in Collegeville. As a matter of fact, if there's a Cornerstone office, I'm probably working out of it. So Southeastern Pennsylvania, anything residential real estate related, give me a call, give me a text, 267-270-1145. Happy to help you out. Happy to take any referrals of people that you know. And one thing I'm going to say, I am unlike most tenured realtors. I absolutely love working with first-time buyers. So if there's a first-time buyer, I just love working with them. I've got a couple that are closing in about 2 weeks, and it's just so much fun to get people into their first house and go through that whole process with them. So let me know. Last thing I want to say before we bring on Chris is this. Last week, we had Steph from Sport Fishing Outlet on Germantown Pike in East Norriton, Pennsylvania. Local shop you should be checking out. And if it's not your local shop, it's mine. It's literally right down the street from me. It's 10 minutes from my office. So I'm in there way too often. I was in there the other day and was talking to some guys for way too long. But he has on SFO, so Sport Fishing Outlet, SFOtackle.com. If you put in the code FATDAD15, you're going to get 15% off. And for full disclosure, because I want you to know what I am making off of this and what I'm not, I'm getting zero for that. I am, as you know, if you're a returning viewer or listener, I really believe in supporting local businesses, and it's the backbone of the sport. And Sport Fishing Outlet is one that you should be checking out for anything freshwater and saltwater. I'm going to tell you that Chris, even though he does not live anywhere near here, he's a patron of Sport Fishing Outlet. I'm sure he'll confirm it. Let me bring him on right now. Chris, good to see you, man.
My guy, how are you, Rich?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this. I'm branching back out into the freshwater in a big way.
I don't even think about anything else this time of year, even though backwater striped bass hasn't closed yet.
Yeah.
I do that till the end of the year, but come the middle of November, it's all about trout fishing the last couple of years up in Pennsylvania. So
Yeah, and you've caught some really nice one. I'm going to put some pictures up as we go into this. There, as a matter of fact, they are uploading right now
great.
as we talk. Um, but one of the things that I really want to stress is we all get this itch for fishing, and for a lot of the saltwater guys, it's like it's saltwater, it's saltwater, it's saltwater. I'm never going back to freshwater, or it's the opposite. It's only freshwater, never saltwater. And this is really a great option for especially this time of year, because this is when, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best time for trout. And
Agreed.
it's a quick trip.
Yeah, it's definitely not an all day trip, especially with the temperatures that we had last winter. And obviously, we're on a track this winter for it not to be too mild. So it's a couple hours, and you get your fix and get some nice fish most of the time, and call it a day. But it's definitely better than what I used to do, and just sit around for the couple winter months and go through tackle, look at photos, and that just wasn't getting it. So I went back to my original passion, and that was trout fishing in PA.
Yeah, well, and you're from PA, so you're familiar with the streams, and that, I think, is one of the biggest barriers to entry when you're talking about legit trout fishing. Because a lot of people, they're just out there as soon as the stocking trucks leave, and and then they're done. Once the stock trout are fished out, or they think they're fished out, and it's not shoulder to shoulder anymore, they just stop. I mean, they stop in the summer, and they just don't start again until the opening of trout the next year. And I want to talk to you. I want to make sure that we talk about exactly what we need to look for when we're looking for a spot. But as we're going into this, let's put on here some of the pictures. So this is the cover picture.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking quality fish here, right? I mean, this is not.
Yeah, these are all like 15 to 17-inch fish, and you could tell like they're thick.
Yeah.
One branch I fish, they do not get a winter stocking anymore. They or fall stocking. They used to, but after COVID, that pretty much stopped. There's another branch, the west branch the east branch that they do stock in the fall, but that's catch and release only. But I like going but that's where most of the people go, right? It's kind of like striped bass fishermen. A lot of them, they go when the blitzes are happening, and then the rest of the time, they'll kind of sit around when the migration in the spring or the fall isn't happening, and they'll sit around through the slow periods. But this is when I like to go, is when nobody's really around, and you get the holdovers from the spring, and we can touch later on about brook trout. And, I like targeting them, even though a lot of those are not as big. But in February, I get a lot of those that have, spawned and whatnot. And, they may not be quite the size, but, they're a great fight, and they breed right in the stream. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's some more, Chris, it's funny. I was looking for a picture with you in it, the old striper pic, but you don't need to do that with the trout.
No, I used to years ago. But by the time you get a camera set up, and I'm not as advanced as you guys are with the, and I don't do GoPros, I don't do, stuff like that. People talk about striped bass being out of the water too long. Trout are super, super sensitive.
Yes.
Winter months, it's not as bad because the water's cold. They love cold water. They're cold water fish. So they will, survive pretty good. But again, they have very delicate mouths, and sometimes a spinner or jerk bait goes in there a little far. Even though the ones that are up on the rocks, the water is literally, inches away.
Right.
So I just take the quick pick and get them in. But no, from the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even deeper than that, I don't have any pictures of me with the trout, unfortunately. So
yeah, well, and that's okay. I mean, that's not why you're there, right?
No, right, exactly. And most of the trout I catch, I don't even take any photos. Just one or two of the biggest ones of the day, I kind of just take pictures of, and put them with collages I have. But fall, November through February is really my favorite time to fish. for multiple reasons. It's really not stockfish that we're catching, so they're not easier to target.
Right.
And I'll run into maybe a few guys, but there's some days I go up and there's 2 miles of stream I fished. I don't pass one person, so it's therapy, let alone catching fish. So
that's my kind of fishing. I want to bring up this picture, and those listening, you don't need to see it, but the one on the left and the baits, we're going to talk about what you're tossing as well, but I thought it was interesting to see, well, you can see it on the right too, what you're fishing now as compared to what you might be fishing in the spring and in the summer. So I want to get into that, but let's start at the very beginning, because I did get some feedback from some people who said, never thought, one of them said basically this, it's not a quote, but never thought I'd be excited for a freshwater stream. But after the last one, I'm now so looking forward to trout. I think I want to try it. So this is a guy who's never fished. Actually, he's going to start. So he needs to buy everything. He needs to figure out where he's going to go. So I want to kind of make this for those types of people. And in the chat, if people have anything that you want to add, please do that as well. So at least the people watching it live or the replay can see what you're saying if you have anything to share. But let's start off with this. First of all, this weather right now, it's 30 degrees outside. It's cold. Right. It's cold weather. How are you dressing when you're going out, and how long are you planning to be out for each trip on the water?
So I usually try to plan 4 hours.
Okay.
Spring, other times of the year, I go up for 6 or 7 hours, but usually 4 solid hours. But that means, that could also mean multiple trips back to the car too, because I've seen people, but I can't wear gloves when I do this type of fishing. Okay. You're using 2 pound line, 4 pound line, 4.5 to a 5.5 foot ultralight rod, and 5.5 is really pushing it. I'd like to go with the 4.5, because with the jerk baits and the spinners, you get, a lot more sensitivity with that. And I think you can get them to go deeper with the lures when you use those light rods. Right. But sweat jackets, t-shirts, thick stormer jacket, like the thickest one they made is the one I wear. I don't wear neoprene waders. Some guys do in the wintertime. Yep. But to be honest, the last couple years with how low the streams have been, I'm really not getting in the water too much. Early spring, late winter, like last March, myself and my brother went up. Water was deeper because we did get a lot of rain in March up there. Right. And there was a heavy flow, and we froze. I mean, from the waist down, we couldn't feel anything for probably almost 3 hours. We had the guides were freezing, the line was freezing, and we caught one fish all day. But again, it was very, very satisfying, because you're catching fish when really, unless you're a diehard trout fisherman, you think that you can't catch fish. But they're cold water fish anyway. So, but you're dressing very, very warm, because it's going to make a real crappy trip. And it's going to make a real short trip if you don't dress for it. But I'm not beyond going back to the car, putting the heat on, putting the heated steering wheel on, for 20 minutes and having something to drink and getting something to eat and going back out. I mean, you need to prepare to do that, because like a day like today, I can't really stay out there for 4 hours without warming up. Again, if you have gloves on, sure, but I just can't. I can't do 2 or 4 pound line with gloves, but you definitely have to dress for it and a mask on too. The what are they called? The
gator.
The gaiters. I got to have a gator, because I have to be able to cover my ears, because for me, that's the first thing that goes is my ears and my fingers. Yeah. I'm not in the water too much, even though I always have chest waders on, because, again, you have accidents, you have a lot of leaves laying this time of year if you get rain, or, last couple of years I've been up there with snow on the ground. It gets very slippery going down those embankments if I'm not walking the stream the whole way. You have to dress from the waist up, or it's not gonna be fun.
I've got, mine is neoprene stocking foot, and then I wear corkers. And when I haven't done it in years, but when I'm fishing the creeks in the cold weather, I'm wearing corkers because of those
Great.
rocks and everything. So I don't have the corkers that you put on the the boot foot waders. I have the actual boots. So that's what I have. And then the Stormer, gosh, what is it? The waterproof, whatever the waterproof, I think it's the highest end one.
Yeah, mine's the heavy neoprene one.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Again, it's not the most comfortable, especially when you're throwing jerk baits and you're throwing Panther Martins and whatnot for long periods of time,
Yeah.
right? Because you kind of lose range of motion, your shoulders start to hurt, you got a backpack on. It's like, but again, this type of fishing is not, it's not for someone that thinks it's going to be easy. And,
Right.
There's days where I've gone up and, I've gone solo and got 8 or 10 trout. I've gone with my brother and we've gotten, 15 or 16 fish between the two of us. But then there's days where I've gotten nothing, or I've gotten 2 years ago, I got a 16-inch brook, and that was the only fish of the day. And I was up there an hour, caught that fish, lost a couple others, but you know what? I had the biggest smile on my face going home that day. But again, that was a day where I had to go back to the car twice because it was just so cold. It never got above 33. There was a wind chill and, it felt like it was low 20s all day. So not for the faint of heart.
If you were up here today, you'd have the wind and you'd have the high water, and you'd be battling it. All right, so you're wearing just the standard stuff. Think surf gear, basically,
Correct.
just for the fresh water. Now let me ask you this. Let's talk somebody. They don't have anything. Are there any? I don't know if you use entry. What rods you use? What type of rod? You'd mentioned a 4.5, maybe 5 foot. But the shorter the better, and I'm assuming that's because you're in under branches and all of that, so you need to be able to swing it. Is that right?
Correct. There's definitely, the one branch I fish there is not. It's definitely not a fly rod fisherman branch. So you don't see many fly rod guys unless they, have corkers on and a walking cane and walk out to the middle,
Right.
And do that. But most sections, to be honest, if I flick underhand real hard, I'm hitting the other bank. It's not like a lot of those streams down by Philly that are really, really wide in certain sections. I don't fish any sections where I can't get to the other side basically by doing an underhand cast. So that's why I go with the shorter rod with a real light tip on it. I do have ones that are stiffer, but again, this time of year, you really have to go by feel and watch the line because they're not super aggressive at times.
Yeah.
But the most sensitive, I do have an IM6 one piece 5.5 that I will use. But again, it depends on what I'm throwing. I'm not against throwing power bait either because to be honest, there's certain periods in the winter where if the water's low and there's just not enough flowing water for me to get the movement on a jerkbait or on a spinner. And you just
switch into scent.
There's a slight drift and I will go to power bait. I hate going to power bait because I do not like fishing that way. But again, it's really no different than fishing a trout magnet, drifting it down. Because again, I'm not fishing holes. I'm fishing moving water that has eddies off to the side, or then kind of just, slows down and goes into some deeper pockets. But so I kind of fish that the way I do a trout magnet and just kind of bounce it on the bottom, not really let it sit. But those are, that's really my go-to is a 4.5 to 5.5 foot rod, a micro size reel, 2 to 4 pound test line. Some guys will say, they still use braid and put a 4 pound leader on. I have no time for that because a lot of times you're getting caught up in the rocks. And again, you need to be prepared. If it's a stream you don't know, you're going to get hung up. You're going to get hung up in trees. You're going to cast onto the other side, get into the bank.
Yeah.
Boulders that usually you're not going to get hung up on if the creeks are higher. Right now they are not. So even me, where I know these streams like the back of my head, the first 45 minutes is usually a learning curve of where am I getting stuck, where am I not, what type of drift, If I have to go to power bait, what size split shot am I using? If I'm using a jerk bait, do I have to weigh that down?
Right.
Spinner size, am I using a size 2? Am I using a size 4? Sometimes guys use smaller, but again, I'm not looking for small fish this time of year. And to be honest, there's not really small fish left. The only fish left have been in there maybe for a few years, and they've really chunked up over the last couple of months. They've eaten everything that's been thrown into the stream. They're eating everything that's come down in the heavy storms over the summer, and they're just sitting there in the current, just waiting for another meal. And those fish are from last month, and they are not stock fish in the fall again, because they don't stock this branch in the fall. The last stocking was end of April, beginning of May, and they've evaded people, and they're pretty smart by now. They know what to bite, what not to bite, and they know there's not a lot of stuff being thrown out there now. So it's a lot of casting angles and, just knowing the proper spots in the current.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. The dumb fish have been caught, and the dumb fish are the 100%. Small fish. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the bigger ones they put in the spring, you can see them because they've been in there for weeks, and usually where they put them in, they're still setting if you don't get any big storms that wash them downstream. And,
right.
That's another thing this time of year is, a lot of people target those spots where they stock.
Yeah.
There are, at least where I go and my experience, though, that's just a waste of time. I go downstream as far as I can go, where I can find some nice waterfalls, go into nice deep holes, some nice rapids there. And it's not out of the question to go 2 or 3 miles down in areas where they don't stock, because you have everything that's washed. So even though a lot of guys that do go out this time of the year, they stick to the areas that are stocked, but that's really not where you're going to catch anything.
Right. Okay. So before we get into the specific spots, let's talk a little bit. Okay. Let's just talk the power bait, because this will be a quick one. What specific power bait are you using? Are you using like the little power bait mealworms? Are you using just the power bait, whatever, the putty stuff? What are you using?
That I can form in my hand, and colors depend on water clarity. I mean, I've never liked chartreuse. I've never liked pink, or my go-to is always the natural off yellow cheese color, as natural as you can get. Because again, I think with freshwater trout, it's about the natural environment. It's not about, again, some people will differ, but my experience is I go with something as natural that would really belong in the stream. Now, if it's muddy up, right, and it's difficult seeing, maybe chartreuse or a hot pink or something like that. But usually I catch 90% of my fish, if I have to go to that, on just the natural color.
Okay. And so you're forming it on the hook. What size hook are you using?
It's probably like a 12 or a 14, like micro size hooks. Again, they will try to get the power bait off.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that, it's a whole science, right? It depends on if it's fast water, if it's slow water, how hungry they are, how aggressive they are. Sometimes you won't even feel it. You won't feel the line move. You won't see the line move. You'll just think, well, I've been out there for, 4 or 5 minutes, and I don't let it sit out there for 10 minutes either. Some people will let it sit. Me, 3 minutes is my max, and then I'll go for another drift. But, many times you pick it up and there's a 15-inch trout on the other end, and he has given zero signs.
Right. Just picked it and sat.
Right. That's where this time of year is different from spring and early fall, is you're still kind of aggressive. So you will, get the bang on the end of the rod, or you'll see that, all of a sudden it's tout and then it goes slack, or vice versa. But, again, and that's why when you pick up, you just don't pick up like there's nothing on there, and you're just going to, you got to just pick up. And if it's tight on the other end, assume it's a fish and not a snag. And, just not a real hard aggressive motion, and just start reeling. And a lot of times you'll be surprised that they're there. So.
Okay. All right. And you're just split shotting above it based on the flow.
Right. And the type of flow depends on where the split shot goes.
Right.
If the flow is not good at all, then the split shot is going to go like basically maybe this high above. Because I don't tie my hooks direct. I still use hooks with a leader on it, and then I tie that to my line. Yep. So right above where I tie that, maybe this high is where I'm putting that split shot. But if I have a heavy flow, then I'm going to go higher, because I want the weight to go down and set. I don't want it just to get swept. I want it to go down faster, but I want my bait to still kind of stay up. But if I really need to get it down quick, because there's going to be no current later on, 15 or 20 feet, and I want to get it down fast, I'll put that split shot literally right on top.
Okay. Very good. And question from my buddy, Tim Murray. Do you ever use live bait?
So minnows. I love using minnows. I've caught my biggest brown trout to date on a night crawler, just free lining it. No weight, no nothing, hooking it just in the end and and it was literally a night crawler this long, at least. I mean, it won't fit on the screen, but probably almost a foot long. And he was just drifting in the current. But again, it was a section of that same creek where it comes down the rapids, right? Drops into a real deep hole. And then gradually, it's still fast current, but then gradually it goes into shallower water. And I was just, hitting it in there. And I found an area where I could kind of get it swept under boulders before it would really get caught up in that shallow water, and caught my biggest fish on that. But, we've used night crawlers, we use mealworms, things like that, but again, I've gotten away from that because I just love the same way with me in saltwater. I just love the artificials. There's nothing like, especially with the jerk baits and Stefanos and Yanni, those guys from SFO, they are the ones that turned me onto the jerk baits a couple years ago, where I would see guys that would go into their shop and they would post photos with the jerk baits. And I'm like, man, jerk baits in the wintertime? Like, how is that? And you know what? They've been a game changer for me. But, again, the minnows are great. Trout, minnows, you tend to get a lot more bites on those because they are smaller size, but they're very, very fragile. To be honest, and again, I guess I'm giving out too many secrets, but again, there's not a whole lot of guys from down here that are going up to fish the streams that I go to. And people that live where I grew up at, they're not coming down here to get saltwater minnows and then going back up. But I take up saltwater minnows, and those minnows are game changers. I'm not using the real big ones that I'll go to Chris Balaban's place in Summers Point and I'll siphon through and take the smaller ones up, and they stay alive a lot longer, and they're a lot more active in the water. And I catch a boatload of freshwater trout on saltwater minnows.
That's great. So let me ask you this. So you're making it's a pretty long trip for you to get. I know where you go.
Hour and 45 minutes. Yep.
Hour 45. So you're bringing minnows up, let's say. Are you doing the old put them in a cooler on the cooler packs with the saltwater rag, and then you lay them on top of that, and then you fold the rag over top, so they're on basically the cooler blocks in the cooler? Or are you just keeping them in like a live well with a aerator?
So I have an aerator on it. Yep. I have a plug-in one in my garage, like an aerator you put in your fish tank, and then I have a portable one too. So I use a portable. I've gone up before without it. But they tend to not be quite as active from the lack of oxygen from the almost 2-hour ride. So I definitely keep them aerated the entire way up. But then obviously when I get to the creek, I'm leaving the aerator in the car and just, taking them stream side with me. But, it's a little bit of a chore because, again, you're bringing the minnow bucket with you. I'm climbing down hills that are very, very steep, where if you have both hands tied up, it can really lead to bad things.
Right.
So I'm very cautious when I bring them up. If I can walk the entire creek, it's easier for me to bring those up. But again, you get storms that you guys have gotten in PA the last couple of years, and I can go next week and it looks totally different from what it was 2 years ago, because a lot of those trees that have been there hundreds of years now are laying across the stream or across the bank. And, it's very difficult, the contour, but there are some spots that always I can climb down, but it's tough if I have minnows. So I try to avoid it. Yeah. But, I do bring those if I can. But, night crawlers and mealworms, again, I don't fish them as much as I did when I was younger. I always used to bring them up, always would stop at the Turkey Hill close by. And, they have a bait section there and buy them and to always have a diverse selection. But I really feel that now, without going that route, the jerk baits, the spinners, the trout magnets, and again, I know we talked about power bait, and there's a lot of haters out there that, guys that use power bait, that's really not true trout fishing. Well, we could say that about guys that bunker fish, right? Or use
I don't see an issue.
Yeah, you're really not catching fish either. So let's not hate on the power bait, but in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, you may not have a choice. So I'd rather go to the power bait if I have to. But again, I'm not starting with that. I'm doing due diligence for the first hour or two in multiple spots with different types of lures, different casting angles, different depths. But if they are glued to the bottom, I'm switching over instead of going home and not catching anything, because that's really not an option.
Right. No, I'm right there with you. I mean, I'll toss whatever I need to toss, and I don't feel bad about it. I mean, it is what it is. If you want to catch fish, sometimes you got to do what the fish want and not what you want. That's really what it comes down to.
And the minnows, when you get to really not early spring, late winter, because remember up there, same way in New Jersey, I guess, but I don't trout fish down here, is that, you get that it closes the second week of February on stock branches. So it's really a race against the clock after the first of the year that, you get at least somewhat bearable weather. Like last winter, there really wasn't any bearable weather. I did go up, but it was very, very difficult. The year prior, I had a lot of windows, the end of January, beginning of February. And actually the first 2 weeks of February is my favorite time to go. Yeah. That is the best time, because you really haven't seen any pressure at all, not even from local diehards that want to get out there in the winter. And, I find a lot of brook trout the beginning of February too, and pound for pound, even beyond browns, brooks fight a lot better.
Well, I'm down for some brook trout. I'm blessed to be around some good trout streams, some stocked, some not. And there are some spots that I want to check out. But before that, before we get into the choosing of the spots and the type of waters that you're looking for, let's talk about, we talked about the bait. All right. So the bait's covered, but really what I want to dive into is what are the artificials that you're using? And let's focus first, not just trout, but this time of year, the cold weather, what's the first thing that you're tying on when you're going to go and hit one of these streams?
Like a 2.5 inch jerk bait.
Okay. Is there a brand that you like? So 2.5 inch, is there a brand and color?
So Trout Magnet, whatever that company is, I guess it's Trout Magnet, right? Is that who makes those? I don't know. I
don't know. I can look it up as you're talking.
So it's the same section that you buy trout magnets, because trout magnets, now they have worms. They have all different, it's not just the historic, the little trout magnets. They make all different ranges now. So whether it's Mr. Trout, Trout Magnet, but it's usually in the same section, same maker. And, but Rapala, they all make those tiny, slim jerk baits. You even have a lot of independent companies that make just, trout lures. They're like Trout Magnet, but they're individual guys, a lot of guys that make crappie jigs, right? Yep. They make hard baits. So I'm not really stuck on a brand. I really don't endorse any type of those brands, because if I find one that works, that's what I'm using. And again, I have multiple colors, but I'm going on a minnow type pattern, maybe some flash on the bottom, right? I don't care whether it's pink or, a little bit of green on the bottom, but the top of the minnow, I want it to look natural in the stream, because usually you're getting crystal clear water.
Yes.
In the wintertime. I mean, like that big brook trout I got 2 years ago, I saw him coming from 15 feet away, where any other time of the year, it's like when you first go to the surf in the spring and it's just gin clear. It's the same way the streams are. So to me, I want my presentation to be as natural as possible. But the last couple of years, I've tied that tiny jerkbait on. Now, I used to use ones with a fatter profile, wasn't getting anything. But when I went to the slim ones that are just very, very, there's just very slim.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first thing I'm tying on.
All right. So Trout magnet jerkbait, 2.5 inch, natural colors if you can get them.
Yep.
And what's your number 2 that you're going to use?
A number 4 Panther Martin with a.
I knew that was coming in.
Yeah. Again, I don't change the blade size, really, to be honest, based on water depth. I've been doing it so long, I can throw a 4 blade across shallow water and not get it stuck. So I just think it gives more vibration in the water, and you can also get it down deeper, where now they're really not setting higher in the water column. Even in the running water, they're not, they're not moving, they're not chasing. So you need to kind of get it down in front of their face. And the number 4 blade does it for me. I used to really be hooked on a bronze blade with the black and yellow polka dot.
Yeah.
On the shaft of it. But, my brother really outfished me the last 2 years with the silver blade. And so really just, silver blade, but I do not fish ones with hair on the tail. And I'll tell you why. They look good, right? And you would think that would be okay. And it does if the fish are shallow, but no matter what size blade you have on there, that hair is going to make it stay higher in the water column.
Right.
I want to get it deeper. So I just put that big blade one on there. And as soon as it hits the water, I have my rod down toward the water and I'm cranking it and getting it down there as quick as I can.
Okay. So, all right. So the number 4 Panther Martin, no hair on it, silver.
Yep.
Do you care if the blade is hammered or if it's smooth? Does that matter to you?
No, it doesn't really matter. I mean, most of the time, the ones I fish, they're smooth. There's on one branch I fish, it's tough for me on the one branch to use inline spinners, right? Because I think you have to have more distance to really get that going through the water.
Right.
Where a Panther Martin, it's like instantly, as soon as it hits the water, you flip the bail, the first crank, you're already creating vibration.
Right.
So inline spinners, I find more of those with the hammered blades on them.
Yep.
But, rooster tails, same thing. If I have more distance where I can fish, I think you have an easier time getting them down into the water column with the hair than you do the Panther Martin, just because it's like a longer profile, the lure itself.
Right.
My brother, he got his biggest brown ever this spring on a rooster tail. I'm like, what are you doing using a rooster tail? We don't use rooster tails. And he tied a rooster tail on. Is there a rooster tail, or it was like a bluey or one of those type of things, but it looked just like a rooster tail. And, what do I know? He pulled out, his biggest fish he's caught in years. So, but the Panther Martin, the jerkbait 2.5 inch, trout magnets, I really don't use a lot of those. I don't, some guys just have a lot of luck. I don't, but other than those 2 lures, I really don't go to a lot of other stuff. I have a ton of stuff in my bag, but I find a lot of success with those. And again, if I'm not catching it on those 2 lures, I'm probably going over and unfortunately using some paste. Because if I'm not getting it on those 2, then they're usually not biting anything else.
All right, fair enough. I mean, we don't have to add more. If there aren't more to add, let's not add them.
No,
right?
but you know what? You have to adapt it to the stream that you're on. I don't want people to think that, well, I go to the stream that I'm on and I've used this and I don't catch anything. And then like, this guy's full of shit. There's got to be other options, right? That's not I fished these streams since I was, my father was taking me when I was 10, 11 years old, trout fishing. So I understand the streams. I know it works. even the colors, right? The natural habit, right? A stream that has a lot of crawdads in it, right?
Yep.
Usually has a good smallmouth population.
Yep.
But trout will go after those crawdads too. Maybe they won't eat the crawdads, right? But they're going to chase them. And you need to resemble what's in that stream.
I've
So
caught trout on little crayfish.
yeah, well, my brother has these little, and they're like they're little plastic, and they're real tiny crawdads.
Yep.
And I'm like, they look like they would really work and whatever. And he first cast last year, and he pulled out a 16-inch rainbow. So
yeah,
again, I have options in the bag, but this time of year I have to try to keep busy, because if I'm just like slow drifting, my hands are going to go fast. I have to be, so I don't mind throwing and throwing and throwing. Right. But again, just because you throw 5 or 6 times in the same spot and they don't bite, right? That's what you do in the spring. If they're not there, they're not aggressive, let's move down a little bit. Here, I know where I'm going. I'm 100% sure that there is fish there. There's zero chance that those fish are not there, right? We haven't gotten we haven't gotten any rain to wash them. The water is not deep enough for them to move downstream. I know where they're at. And the ones I've caught, the big ones the last month and a half, I've put them back. So they're not, and the people that I know that do go, they're not harvesting this time of year. They're usually putting back too. So those fish are there, and there's a lot more in there than what I've even caught. So it's just a lot of patience, a lot of casting, changing the angle, right? Because again, they're sitting facing current. Yeah. So just coming across current may not be doing it. Sometimes, you're casting downstream and back up, because even though the current's going, to the right, you have the eddy that comes back up towards you. So now they're sitting the opposite direction. So it's just a lot of patience, but you really have to know the stream that you're going on to understand what's going to work and what's not. But even a stream that I haven't been on before, I'm going with that Panther Martin regardless.
Okay. So let's talk about the spots now as we come to, we're almost 45 minutes. So let's talk about this specific spot. So we're geared up. We're dressed warm. We got the rod, the reel, the light line. We've got a Panther Martin on there, or a trout magnet, or something like that. Now we're hitting the water. What are you specifically looking for? Let's start at the macro level. Like, what type of stream are you looking for? Let's say you're going in an area you've never been to before, but you can ask any questions. What's the type of stream that you're going to want to look for?
If it's got some deep running water pockets, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me is, a shallow stream, or even like a stretch that's just shallow, where I can just see bottom. Not saying again that there's nothing there, but that's not what I'm going to target this time of year, because they're sitting there in their winter holes. Where they're really not going to move too much, but they want that oxygenated water that even when other parts of the creek are going to freeze, this isn't going to freeze over, and that's where they're going to be. So, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for bends. I'm looking for, any type of sweeping water that goes into an eddy, eventually dumps into a deep pocket. I'm not going to fish that deep pocket because they're probably not going to be there. And again, with gin clear water, you can see all the way down, so you can see whether there's fish there or not. But I'm definitely looking for a structure in those streams.
Okay. And when you're looking at these, as far as you're saying shallow water, deep water, what are you considering deep water pockets? Like what depth?
Again, it depends on the stream.
Absolutely. But
even these deep water pockets, on this stream I'm talking about, even at max flow, it's probably 4.5 feet.
Okay.
At its deepest. But if I were to go up there last week, it may be 2.5 feet. But then it also dumps into water that is barely going over some rocks. So anything that's moving and deeper than what is 1/8 of a mile in front of it, that's the area I want to target.
Okay. That makes sense. Do you fish anywhere near most of the dams have been ripped out by now, but do you fish anywhere near dams when you're up in PA?
No.
Okay.
No. Marsh Creek in Downingtown, right? That's got a spillway that dumps into the East Brandywine there.
Yeah.
There was a couple dams along that not really dams.
They're like spillway.
Yeah, but some of those have been, even on the branch itself, the fish ladders, they've broken down because of water heights. They just want to keep it flowing, right? Because the water just doesn't stay high enough to go over, and it creates droughts downstream. So they've knocked a lot of those away. So no, I really don't. The ones I fish really don't. They don't really have dams. They don't have fish ladders. It's just, the natural contour of the stream where, now it's going to hit this mini cliff and just drop over. And right below that is usually where I go.
Yeah. So I was thinking, there are some near here. I mean, I could walk to a couple where old dams that are either totally removed or partially, but they don't really remove the bottom. So you get a nice drop off there, where it was dug out over the past, 30 years of having a dam there. It's a little bit deeper. So it's maybe 3.5 to 4 feet. And then it comes up into you might know exactly the spot that I'm thinking of right now, but it then comes up into huge boulders, like sizes of a car boulders.
Sure.
Then it gets really shallow, but then you get this deeper area where it gets down to about 3.5 feet again. So I'm wondering, should I be looking further down near those boulders, or should I be up to where that old dam was?
So again, I think it depends on I think it depends on the current and the water height. Sometimes, if the water's flowing fast, I'm going a little past.
Okay.
I'm going a little bit further because once it slows down, right, then you're going to start. That's where you're going to get that eddy that comes back.
Yep.
But if it's real slow and the water's shallow, that eddy is going to hit faster. So then I'm going to kind of go closer to, where and I guess, maybe 50, 60 years ago, they were dams because, it's high on the sides, right? Yep. It runs over in the center. But again, I'm 54. As long as I've been fishing those streams, there's never been dams there. Maybe, again, 100 years ago there was, but how close I fish to the actual drop depends on the water height and how fast the water's moving.
Yeah.
But it's still the same general area. It's still the same stretch of water.
Right.
It just depends how far down that stretch I go. Depends on the water height and movement.
Gotcha. So yeah, so there's a spot. There are several near me that they look pretty interesting. Now, I've never fished them for trout. I fished them for everything from muskie to, smallmouth. That's right. The fish of choice it's the Perkiomen Creek. Yep. This section that I'm talking about, one of the branches. But it is very interesting because it does get super shallow.
Sure.
I mean, you can walk across in flip flops in the summer and barely get wet.
Yep.
But it does run a couple feet deep further up, where it's a lot more narrow.
Sure.
And I'm thinking that might be my first spot.
100%. I wouldn't even focus on, you get heavy rains after, do they stock that creek with trout or no? They stock that?
No, not that branch. No.
But again, I don't know what feeds into that, but you'd be surprised how many branches of creek that don't get stocked wind up having trout there.
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
My largest trout I caught in an unstocked, I should say this, let me qualify this. My largest trout in this area, which is stocked,
right,
was on an unstocked tributary that was maybe 1.5 miles off. I mean, it was connected to stocked areas, but it was about 1.5 miles off of it. And it was the largest one that I caught. The largest one I ever caught was a native in the middle of the Pennsylvania wilds, like 7 or 8 miles in the middle of nowhere. Sure. I mean, that was the biggest one, but that's not the type of fishing that I'm doing now. I'm not.
And you know what? If you're just starting, if for someone that's just starting out, it's better to go on a branch that they do stock.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of branches they stock late fall for their winter stock. They'll do a November stocking, and then they'll do again in February if it's a catch and release. Artificial lures only year round, the late harvest area. But go on a stock branch and you'd be surprised just because you can't see fish. People say, "Oh no, it's fished out." There's a ton of holdovers.
Yeah.
In these streams. But again, you have to know spots to target. And usually when you find those spots, there's more than one fish there. There's multiples, because there's really no other place, right?
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
in the middle of drought like you guys have up there, that there's no other place for them to go. They can't really expand. They can't kind of wander around. But that's why I like these areas where you get the rapids and the waterfalls that go into a nice long stretch, because again, they may not be right at the base of that, they may not be at the end, but there's a lot of water there that's still moving before it hits that shallow water, where they can still, go out and swim around, investigate, go out for a meal or whatever. They're just not sitting packed like in a 2-foot section. There's area for them to go and come back in those eddies. So
Right. Unless you have a nice overhang or something. They're not going to be
yeah,
necessarily stacking up on top of each other.
right. Correct.
Yeah, I am looking forward to getting out there. I have my my trout. I took it out of the car last week, but I have my trout rod all respooled, ready to go. I got to get down to SFO though, because I got to get some of the I got to switch up what I'm using. I'm gonna copy your approach and see how I can do. But I'm definitely going to be on the water in the next week.
Yeah, as soon as the new year gets passed, I mean, hopefully I'll get up a couple times. I have a target temperature though. Like I don't care how cold the water is. I'm okay with that because it really. I mean, I've caught them with ice still on the creek in certain spots.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter, right? They're cold water fish. But if it's not going to reach above freezing outside during the day,
Yeah, I'm not going.
It's kind of tough. I mean, I like it when I get there and it's 32, anywhere between 28 and 32, and it's going to, be at least 45. I mean, 50 would be ideal, but a lot of days it doesn't get there, and you just got to be prepared for the long haul. But once you put, I spent one winter 3 years ago and had it's best to go with zero expectations.
Right.
You go with zero expectations. Because then anything is a win-win.
Right.
And you got to be prepared. If you get a bump, that fish probably is not coming back. They're not aggressive. They're not chasing. They're very smart this time of year because they've been in that water. They know what a hook feels like. So if you don't, they're not like they just got dumped in the stream, right? And they're just hitting everything that comes in, where you can cast 3 or 4 times and they're coming back.
Yeah,
Here,
yeah.
if you don't get that hook set, it's okay. Don't be frustrated. Hey, it didn't happen, but now I know where to go. Once you get that first bump or you get that first fish, that should be the areas you target every single winter. Spend one winter, find 2 or 3 good spots on 2 or 3 different branches. It saves time. It saves headaches. And when you get up there, right, you're not wasting an hour waiting in areas you shouldn't be. That's just dead water, especially if you're freezing. You can just get out of the car, walk to your spot, get right into it immediately. If that doesn't work, hey, I know this spot I could go to. The one branch I go to now, it's 2 spots. That's it. And when I'm done, I go to the other branch. I don't waste time in between. Well, here's a little pocket here. No, they're not there. They're in these 2 or 3 spots, and that's it.
So let me ask you this before we wrap this up. Is there any other species that you're running into in the winter when you're fishing for trout? Are you picking up smallies or anything?
So believe it or not, no. Those same branches, I will get more smallmouth than trout if I go in June, July, August, September.
Yep.
But and solid trout. I mean, I'm talking, these are very, very shallow streams. So if you get a 14 or 15-inch smallmouth, right, that's like a banner trout in those type of streams. It's not, where you're fishing the Schuylkill or whatever, and you're getting, 3 or 4 pound smallmouth. They're not that size.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they go in the winter. I don't know where they move to, but it's like there's a window where they show up in the spring and then they disappear in the fall. So on this branch, at least these 2 branches, when I get a strike, 100% equivocally, it's a trout, because I just don't catch those in the winter. But most creeks, that do hold abundant smallmouth, a lot of the bigger ones, they're sitting in the same spots, because where else are they going to be in the wintertime? They're going to be in the those same holes. So, but with the jerk baits, if there are smallmouth there, you'll catch those too. So again, if the trout, I think, are a little more difficult, then the smallmouth are going to take a little more coaxing. But again, if you're fishing in a section that has a lot of smallmouth and trout in it, you're going to have to weed through the smallmouth to get to the trout, because the smallmouth tend to be more aggressive. Yeah. That's the problem, not to harp on this point, but the gentleman asked about live bait. So you have to weed through the smallmouth with the live minnows to get to the trout.
Right.
So, I mean, so a lot of times it's not worth for me to do that. I'll get more trout on the jerk bait and the spinner than I will, because smallmouth just love minnows. Trout do too, but you got to weed through them.
That's why I don't like using shrimp for sheep's head or tog, because you end up getting all the sea bass and everything else are going to jump right on the shrimp. So it's not worth it to me. Even if that's what they want, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to go through all that.
And this branch doesn't hold, like the one branch doesn't hold anything other, it holds panfish, but other than smallmouth and trout, those are the two main species it holds. But then if I go over to the other branch, same name creek, but other branch, you get muskie that'll show up in there.
Yeah.
The largemouth bass, because, once they open the gates up to the reservoir that dumps in, those will come over the spillway. So, you have shots at other ones on that branch, but on the other branch I fish, it's really just trout, smallmouth. And in the wintertime, it's just more or less just trout. So.
Gotcha. Another question in the chat. Have you ever caught rock bass?
Caught plenty of rock bass.
When you were winter fishing?
So late winter and early fall, but in the depth of winter, no. But also, again, I'm not using night crawlers.
Right.
Night crawlers, you can catch a lot more on those. But all these branches I go to, they all hold rock bass, and one of them holds a lot more than the other. But again, if you're using live bait, tend to catch a lot more. So I imagine you will catch them in the winter, but go out there with night crawlers and even, just, dig up some worms, even though the ground's froze now. But, we've gotten those heavy rains the last couple of years and the ground's just kind of stayed moist. So, but if there's rock bass, you'll definitely catch those in the winter too with live bait.
There you go. All right. Is there anything that we didn't cover that we should cover?
Again, go with no expectations in the beginning, because if you go up with high expectations and you get disappointed, right, and you don't catch anything, to some people, it's going to stop them from going back again. Right. So even though I fished these branches for 40 years, when I started doing it in the dead of winter, I started doing it with zero expectations. Then when I caught fish, it's like, hey, this is great. When I didn't catch fish, it's not a letdown, because I know I'm going to the right spots. I know I'm using the right lures. It's like striped bass. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In the cards, it's not in the cards. But go with zero expectations, and fish slow and low. They're not sitting at the top of the water column. They're not sitting, halfway up the water column. They're sitting kind of dead to the bottom. So just get those lures down deep, and don't be afraid to switch over to the paste.
Very good.
Because sometimes you have to do that. I won't do that in season. I used to when I was younger. I refuse to do that now. But in the wintertime, if you got to do it, you got to do it. But and you got to watch your line. You have to watch your line. Slightest, maybe you won't even feel a tap, but just any change in that line, you just, you have to, because the fish could be on the other end, and it could be, 15, 16, 17-inch holdover that's been sitting there and is just playing coy with everything else. And he's sitting there within his mouth facing the current, and
until you come tight.
And this time of year, honestly, people run after the palominos and golden trout that they stock, 25, 26 inches. And hey, it's my biggest fish to date. I'm going after my biggest trout in the middle of winter. And you'd be surprised how big some of the fish are that you can get in the dead of winter that aren't freshly stocked fish. There are big fish in shallow streams that are holdovers that are still there. And they make it year after year.
I think we need to do some kind of a competition for the winter, now through the second week of February. let's say, let's have people posting on the Facebook page there the pictures of the trout that they're catching at this time of the
Yeah,
year.
I
I'd
think
love
it'd be
to
great.
see what people can do
Yeah,
and just kind of I hope to be out there catching some. I'm gonna, I there are some spots that I'm pretty sure will produce, but they're not where I want to find some different ones. I want to find some that are more convenient to me because
right.
what I would love to be able to do is what I used to do when I worked in Ballackinwood. There was a spot on the Schuylkill that I had found, and the guy let me fish. The two guys let me fish between their house, and there was one little
Nice.
tiny spot. So at lunch, I would here I am dressed up for work. I would just
Yeah,
go and just put on sneakers, walk down to the edge, and just fish. And then I could stop at let's say quarter of one or whatever,
right.
and I could be in my meeting at 1 o'clock. you
Yeah,
know, so I need something convenient. It would be great if I had something that I could find that's really convenient. So I'm gonna be doing that, but I'm gonna start. If I get some, I'm gonna try to get some photos and start posting them. I'm excited to jump into it. So I'm gonna be down at Sport Fishing Outlet probably tomorrow, buying some
nice,
stuff.
nice.
Yeah, gonna have to.
And also in the wintertime, not like spring, like I get up real early in the spring, get up, and I'm there an hour before the sun rises. And that's usually my target window. Just about like everything I fish is that golden
Yeah,
hour. But this time of year, I want the light to be hitting and any type of sun to be warming that water up just a little bit, because there's some spots, right? If I get up there at 7:30, 8 o'clock, I don't get anything. I go back to that spot after the sun has hit for 2 hours
yeah,
and I'm catching fish. So
yeah.
don't be afraid to let the sun hit the water. It's not like summertime or late spring where it's heating it up, right? And now they're going to be dormant until dusk
It's
or
the
after
opposite.
dinner or whatnot. It's the opposite.
Yep.
You want to go in the middle of the day this time of year, so you don't have to get up. And I get up early still because I want to beat the traffic going up over 322 and Commodore Barry Bridge, right?
Yep.
Certain times of the day, now it's going to make a 2 hour ride, a 3 hour ride. But if you don't mind that, or it's more adjacent to where you are, at 10, 11, 12 o'clock is perfectly fine. Let that light shine on the water. Let the sun beat full blast, because it definitely will help.
See, I love this because for me, it's always get up at 3 a.m. so I can get that first bite.
No, not this
Now,
time of
for
year.
me,
No,
it's
no, 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 no.
get up at normal
April
time.
and May. Yeah. No, 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 no. Not now. And that's a mistake I made, right? I have caught them at 8 o'clock in the morning, but most of the fish I catch, again, if it's late at 6:30, really 8:30, 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
because the first hour it's light, right? On a lot of the streams where you go down the bank, the sun's up, but it's not hitting the water till
Right.
8:30, 9 o'clock. This time of year, where in the spring it's different. Like the
Right.
sun's a
Yep.
different angle this time of year, and you don't have as much daylight. So, go in the warmest part of the day this time of year, as long as you can avoid the traffic.
All right. Well, I'm going this week. I know
You
you
have to.
probably won't with the holidays, but I am.
No,
Um,
listen, and again, it's very rewarding. There's
yeah.
nobody out there, and there's just something more natural to me fishing and being in a stream. If somebody hasn't done it and they think that, well, freshwater fishing isn't my game, if you get on a stream and you catch a nice solid brown or brook trout in fast running water that hits the other end of a jerkbait, you'll never go back.
Yeah.
You'll never go back. It's highly addicting.
All right. I'm in. I'm going to be hitting them. Chris, thank you very much for coming on.
Before the spring, we're going to go together. I'm going to pick you up on my way up, and we're going to go, and we're going to get into fish before everybody else gets out there. So we got 6 weeks to do it before the middle of February when it closes.
And I'm going to, if I can find something around here, it'll actually even cut some time off for you. So if I find a couple of good spots, then maybe you have a new spot and you can shave a half an hour off.
So you put the legwork in, though, because I don't want to spend another winter finding a spot.
No.
So if you find a spot, you let me know. We'll go. If not, we'll go to my spots and we'll we'll get some nice solid fish. So it'll be a pleasure.
I'm in. It'll be fun. Chris, thank you very much for coming on. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. We're not going to be on next Monday. It's just not going to happen. Too much with the holidays, and I'm gonna play an old episode that's probably not online anymore. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. Everyone, have a great Christmas, enjoy the time with the family. And then when you get sick of them, instead of going to the movies, hit a trout stream and post those pictures up so that we can see them. We've got some great guests planned for January, so I'm looking forward to that. Not going to announce them because we don't have the order of people yet, but we've got some cool shows coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. Chris, thanks again. Everyone, make sure, despite this weather being cold, it's still fishable. So get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.
Thanks, Guy. Merry Christmas.